Okay, everybody, I'm so glad you were able to join us today. This is Monday, August the 10th, and this is session 2 of 2, understanding and reducing the challenge of securing childcare during the pandemic. And that is part of a 2-session workshop session of understanding, compassion, warm, transparent, empathetic progress when it comes to everything that we have to deal with during this pandemic for student parents. So I'm Tommy Lanier, Program Coordinator for the Student Parent Center. Today we have some guests. These guests will be with us for the duration of the session, except for one. The idea is that our guests are gonna help inform you, clarify a few things, maybe a little bit more when it comes to childcare challenges during the pandemic and best practices on how to navigate that. Now, as some of our previous videos on social media and even some of the conversations that we've all had maybe one-to-one during drop-in advising and academic advising appointments, this is not necessarily a direct, just sign up, attend the Zoom conversation, and then voila, magic wand, you have childcare session. More than it is, again, something that has the potential to lead you to access to childcare, but on top of that, it kind of unpacks and gives you maybe a fuller scope of why things the way they are beyond UC Berkeley's campus relative to the pandemic. And then for a lot of us, it's going to be a moment of clarification and assurance, because what I can definitely say is that everyone, as far as our guests, myself, student staff, yourselves, we're all we all have the same goal, which is to secure childcare the best way we can and to navigate the challenges when we can't. And that was in conjunction with session number 1, when we talked about academic accommodations. All right, so I'm going to move forward with my slide and talk about today's agenda. Today's agenda, we will have a session 1 recap. We'll introduce our guests, our overview of services provided by each representative. We'll have some questions coming from the Student Parent Center, per se, as a program for our guests. And then we're gonna stop the recording with respect to privacy, confidentiality, and we'll have a non-recorded Q&A session with the student parents in attendance. And then we will be done. So by any chance you cannot take time to be with us until 3 o'clock, no worries. If you had a question that you want to ask, follow up through email, that's fine. It will be archived and recorded. And a lot of subject matter, I'm pretty sure, will be covered even when I don't ask the question or you ask the question. So no worries, let's move forward. Session 1 recap, all right? So for people who were with us during session 1 about 2 weeks ago, this is about academic accommodations for student parents without childcare this fall. Now, some of you, it might have changed since then, but for the most part, that session was, lack of better words, devil's advocate. We know for a fact there's no childcare coming. You're still a student parent, do accommodations in lieu of that so you can maintain academic progress at the same time as you sustain your parental obligations, all right? So here's some quick takeaways. The most common alternative to providing time and space to yourself for personal class and study time. That's the academic accommodation for student parents. Now, there are other ways to do it. This is just meaning it in the Student Parent Center, UC Berkeley, undergraduate, graduate, campus-based narrative for yourself, all right? It's also, most student parent accommodations are mandated by individual and combined state and federal laws. Now, we're definitely not gonna go back into all of that from session 1, but if you've seen session 1 or plan to, pay attention to the Title IX aspect and how that plays into, and that's a federal law, how it plays into state law and campus policy. Campus policies help with the gaps between both sets of law, state and federal. So that triangulation is usually the baseline for the obligations that are due to student parents. And again, if it's not necessarily asking, it's not a matter of favor. This is a matter of policy and making sure that you are accommodated properly. Methods to accommodate currently exist in the COVID-19 campus response to the general student population. And I've said this numerous times between myself and students and campus colleagues. A lot of the responses that you're seeing with your classes being what's known as synchronous and asynchronous, in the clouds and remote and online, those are equity-based responses for a situation that is extenuating, right? We have the global pandemic. We can't necessarily attend classes in the way that we did it before because of something that is not necessarily like our fault. It's not punitive. It's not ostracizing. It's because of a situation and it's being respected. Parenthood, at least through the Student Parent Center and our partners, is no exception to that definition of extenuating circumstance. And it's not even a crisis-based response more than it is, again, a legislative obligation to you. So just want to unpack that one even more. Another thing, just a friendly reminder, a little bit of advocacy in this one. There is no mandate to not accommodate student parents. Okay, so student parents, if you're watching this and you might feel some anxiety, oh no, what if I go to my professor? What if I go to my GSI? Okay, what will they say? They may or may not, usually they do accommodate, but in the event that the conversation is a little more difficult than expected, understand that there is no structural language, there's no formal law that says that student parents cannot be accommodated, especially when it's reasonable and it's in an ethical sense, like a global pandemic, right? And then lastly, the Student Parent Center and the Graduate Division can support student parents with communication and advocacy if needed. And I want to be specific and intentional with that. Sometimes the student definitely needs to check in with the Student Parent Center and get Student Parent Center pro staff, student staff, advocacy involved. What we don't do is not give you the benefit of the doubt. Most times we know that student parents are excellent at going into the office of the professor, well, virtually now, to the professor or the GSI and requesting these accommodations, and they're reasonable and it gets worked out. We move forward. We are anticipating that that will need to be done again because of the pandemic and its impact on childcare. And that was session one in a nutshell. And we will provide session one's link if you haven't already got it through our other listserv emails thus far. Today's guests, and forgive me if I spelled or pronounced a name wrong. I try my best to be respectful here. We have Laurel Coates from the Berkeley Parents Network. We have Judy Kriege from Bananas Referral Agency, and Carrie Fresh, Director of the Office for Faculty Equity and Welfare here at UC Berkeley. The three of them, along with myself, along with you, the student parents, we will unpack, we'll talk, and we will get through some of the challenges. Just a little side note, Carrie will not be with us the whole time. She has an update, but it's still relevant to this longer conversation, which we will have just about the challenges, what to expect, and plans of action moving forward. All right, so that said, let's start with our overview of services provided by each representative, and I want to be intentional of Carrie's time. Let's have a quick update from Carrie on upcoming campus options for student parents. Thank you so much in advance, once again, Carrie, for joining us. We're very appreciative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'm Carrie Fresh. I'm the Director of the Office for Faculty Equity and Welfare. And actually, for this purpose, I'm representing the Chancellor's Advisory Committee on Work and Family. And as a recommendation from that committee, we're putting together a website. I'm actually going to put in the chat a link here. This is a website that is a place to we put all the different resources for different populations on campus around current dependent care policies and resources. And this is actually the place where we're going to be putting a new resource coming soon that's called Berkeley Care Bubbles. And what it is going to be a website where student parents and others can go to post needs that they have around childcare using other community members. So it may be that you're looking to find other parents to hire a shared provider, or you're looking for somebody to do trades with on an occasional basis, or you're looking for somebody else to socialize with who has kids of a similar age. So it actually is similar to a function that's on the Berkeley Parents Network, which I'm sure Laura will mention. in a moment, but we thought that this might be helpful for our campus community so that, for example, student parents can find other student parents and other ways to connect with others in our community. We're expecting the website to be ready by the end of August at the latest, and the link to that will be on the website, family.berkeley.edu, that I put in the chat. Tommy, is there anything else you'd like me to say about it?
I think yes, and it's relative to Berkeley Parents Network and Bananas Referral Agency, just making sure that students understand that these are, as much as possible, vetted, safety oriented, and risk concerned options for them, as opposed to something that might seem like the contrary. So
right, I mean, you still have to do all of your regular due diligence before entering into any agreements with anyone that you connect with.
Right.
But I think the benefit of something like this is that it does allow you to find others who are in your same situation, who maybe live in your same neighborhood, who are also like, maybe are looking for low cost or no cost options to just help fill in some of the gaps. We understand that as a campus, we can't solve all the childcare problems that exist, but we're hoping that we can provide some options that will make a difference, and hopefully this will be one of them.
Excellent. I think that covers what I was intending for students to know. So thank you so much, Carrie.
I'm going to put my my email address if anyone wants to send any questions to me. I'm happy to try to answer them. So feel free to let me know. And best of luck this fall to everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks so much.
We appreciate you. Bye-bye. All right. Well, as we've all heard, that is a potential option for you moving forward, along with the academic accommodations we mentioned in session 1. I want to pivot back to both Laurel and Judy to give an overview of services provided from the outlets they represent. And in no particular order, there was no preference or anything like favoritism. Let's start with Berkeley Parents Network, and then we'll go into Bananas. Laurel, would you like to start? I don't know if we can hear you. My computer audio stopped working. How about this?
Want me to go ahead and
absolutely.
while Laurel's trying to
that's what I was
things
thinking.
Technologically. All right.
Absolutely. Yep. We'll just switch it around.
Sure.
Go ahead, Judy. Thank you
So
so
my
much.
name is Judy, and I work for an organization called Bananas. Some of you may have heard of us before. We're actually part of the California state child care infrastructure. We're the consumer ed piece. Our duty is to keep updated information on licensed childcare options in the area and provide those as referrals, as well as to have knowledgeable staff be able to talk with you about what childcare looks like, what is licensing and what does it provide, and what kind of oversight and what kind of regulations programs have to abide by, as well as advice on the steps involved in choosing your own child care, you as the parent, and what's important for you to do when looking at different options. We also are responsible for facilitating some, as well as knowing the broader infrastructure out there for childcare subsidies. So when someone needs help paying for childcare, we are also the agency to go to for information on that as well. So we're pretty comprehensive in both childcare referrals as well as the childcare subsidy world. We provide some parenting workshops, all of them online at the moment, and those are free to those who would like to participate. Besides the licensed childcare, and licensed I mean family childcare, which is a type of licensed care in a provider's home, as well as licensed centers. Besides having referrals for those, we also help parents find nannies if that's the route they want to take, as well as nanny shares, meaning 2 or more families who decide to hire a nanny together and work out the details about where and how much and all that kind of stuff. We do that through a job board on our website where people can post their interest in hiring, as well as their interest in finding other families to do a share with. So that's kind of what Bananas is all about in a very kind of quick way. And people can access currently with the way it's happening. We're not in the office, but we follow up on voicemail messages from people requesting referrals regularly every day. People can do that also through our referral email. So that's how someone might be able to get referrals. You can also do a search on our website. We do have that aspect for licensed care. It's just usually a better, I think, experience talking with a referral counselor who knows how to pull more data and pull more specific, appropriate for individual families. Okay. Do you want me to get into any more detail or wait for the questions?
No, that was excellent. And yes, when we get into the questions, I'm pretty sure the details will come out a little more. Thank you so much, Judy. Laurel, would you like to go now? Is audio?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yay, we can.
Yay,
Excellent.
sorry about that. It was like perfect timing, right? It's just died suddenly. It's okay. So my name is Laurel Coates. I'm a volunteer with the Berkeley Parents Network. I am one of the moderators for one of the newsletters. So the Berkeley Parents Network was started in 1993, and I got involved with it back when I was a student parent at Cal, almost about 22 years ago. My son is actually going to have his 22nd birthday at the end of August. So, and I used to go to the Student Parent Center and use it a lot when he was a baby. So I'm one of you. So the Berkeley Parents Network it's an online resource, and you can use Berkeley Parents Network for a lot of things. So in terms of for childcare resources, you can use it for finding a nanny or a nanny share or in-home daycares, much like Bananas. You can use it to find home-based daycares or babysitters, but you can also use it for lots of other things too. So you can use it to find baby items. You can use it to get advice from other parents. You can connect with other parents, to find play groups, kind of like what Carrie was talking about. You can find out about classes and kids activities. You can get information about neighborhood activities, so more local information for like where you may live. And there's information for babies, and there's information for older kids too. So it's not just about like baby stuff. So it's information that's more relevant for different age groups. So it goes from, for if you're pregnant right now, or even if you have teenagers and kids that are like, that you're launching to maybe go into college. So it goes, so there's a wide range. So I think that pretty much covers what the Berkeley Parents Network is. And one of the things that's really great about the Berkeley Parents Network that I was talking about with Tommy earlier is it's really relevant for now, because whereas the Student Parent Center, you could go there and meet and connect with other parents, the Berkeley Parents Network is online. So right now we're really trying to social distance, and so the Berkeley Parents Network is really a place for you to find those resources at a safe distance. So you can get these places, you can get these resources, and then connect later when you feel you're ready to do so. Is that good, Tommy? Maybe I'm going to put in the chat the web address for that too.
Yes, I was going to say, if
Yeah.
you can, but if you
Yeah.
know time goes by and it's like, oh, don't put it in the chat, we'll follow
No,
up.
no, no. I'll do that now.
Okay.
I can do the same for bananas as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judy. No, that was excellent. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And we will transition to student parent-centered questions based off of some pretty general, reoccurring common themes that have come to us from students and campus partners alike. But I want to emphasize this is about our session today is about the student parent themselves. So these are some of the takeaways of the most heaviest conversations that we've had. And when I say we, I mean myself, student staff, and interns servicing student parents. The first question is regarding accreditation and licensing and equity and safety. It's all relative to these topics that you see on your screen. So without further ado, first one is, and you kind of answered some of it, but I think this is where we can unpack it a little bit more. Based off of the pandemic, what are the main changes in the way childcare is being administered during the pandemic?
Yeah, I can answer that.
Sure.
So just so people understand, Bananas is contracted by the state, and we have specific requirements for the type of referrals that we give. Only licensed childcare providers are allowed to be in our referral database. And we have a legal relationship with the licensing agency. They are required to let us know if we ever need to remove someone from our database. So we can't give referrals to, for instance, a provider whose license has been revoked, or they're under probation, or they're temporarily closed down for an investigation. Right? So that's regularly updated. That's one line of security. When someone is licensed, there's numerous regulations they have to abide by, including all people working in the licensed programs. And in the case of family childcare, the one that happens in the home of the provider, the family members, anybody who lives there, must also go through a criminal background check. They get screened for tuberculosis and other diseases, and the place gets inspected by the licensing agency for health and safety and re-inspected, well, it used to be annually. They have, obviously during this time, put a hold on those inspections, and licensing is working on ways to do some sort of form of inspection remotely, or however it may be done. So they're trying to look at different ways to accomplish that. What was the full question? That was it, just wanting to know about that? Oh, with COVID, yes.
Yes.
So things have changed. One, a lot of childcare has disappeared. Yeah. So programs, when it first went down and we were in sheltering in place, we emailed all the people in our database, and it's pretty comprehensive. Most licensed childcare providers choose to be in our files. So we surveyed those folk in the database, and only those that got back to us saying that they were currently open are the ones that we're now giving referrals for. We're regularly hearing from and talking to providers, adding new ones who are kind of slowly coming back, but it still is not, close to the amount of childcare that was there previously. That's one. The other thing is that childcare programs have been receiving a lot of information, both advice as well as mandates from the state about practices. So for instance, they're being asked to limit the number of children that they serve, to keep them, those that they do serve, to keep them in little pods, essentially, that don't mix and are regular, so that whatever bubbles they're creating there stay the same. There's practices around when children are brought to care, screening for fevers and other kinds of questions that will be asked. Limitations to the parents being inside the facility, and all kinds of cleaning protocols and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of difference in the way that childcare is kind of looking these days and the requirements for providers, which then also generally reduces the number of children that even those programs that are available are allowed to serve. So slots are tough right now in finding those. We've got the new phenomenon is parents with school-age children, where before mostly we'd be talking to them about just before and after care or during vacations and summers and so forth. Right now, the concern is that they're not going to school, yet they do have online learning responsibilities. And so we've just been in constant conversation lately around, well, how are we going, not we, Bananas ourselves can't specifically address that issue other than to make sure we know what's going on and how to advise. So we're working on, thinking through and helping parents think through different kinds of options and getting creative around that. So I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Judy. Laurel, your take on it? Some of the changes from your aspect?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Judy answered a lot of the questions. I mean, honestly, I don't know enough about that aspect of the newsletter, but I do know that the Berkeley Parents Network only allows licensed daycares to advertise on Berkeley Parents Network. Nannies, no. And that's one of those things that you're going to have to vet yourself and get recommendations from other people. Make sure that the care provider has, qualifications like CPR, that sort of thing, and talk to them about what their practices are regarding safety and that sort of thing. So that's something that you'll have to follow up on yourself. But as far as I know, we don't have that sort of structure for nannies. But as for licensing for childcare, for family, for those sort of businesses, then yeah, we do, definitely. I'm sorry that I can't answer that question. I'm sorry to be so, I'm just a little unclear about that. I'm sorry that I can't be a little bit like,
You're okay. You're okay.
Yeah, okay.
I think you answered the question. You answered the question.
I might add one other thing is that
sure.
Besides the license and having a general understanding of what that covers and requires, and how they get in our files and that kind of thing, a lot, as always, and it's still the same with COVID or not, that a lot of oversight has to be done by the parent.
Right.
And so that's why Bananas primarily exists, is to be able to advise parents on what their side of the equation is in terms of how they look at programs. And I would say that COVID certainly has affected that to some extent, where much of the time we were saying, go and look at the place, hang out, observe, interview providers face-to-face, all those kinds of things. Now people have to get more creative on, and we've been advising around using the phone as best you can for all kinds of aspects, interviews certainly, and calling references and all that kind of stuff. There's ways to check on their licensing history, and in the referrals we give, it tells you how to do that. But when it comes to observing, that's where people have to get creative, working with the provider on peeking through windows, virtual tours on the phone, whatever ways that they can try to do that.
Thank you, Judy. And thank you too, Laurel. You're both speaking to the same aspect of our questions noted here on the slide, which is, we have to have very transparent and honest conversations about safety and risk. And some people thought, well, did you mean insurance? No, I mean assurance, being sure as best as possible from these checks and balances that we are not putting our dependents into harm's way. So I'm very, very happy that both of you are addressing it from the standpoint that you experience it from. The next question, and this is because you answered another question I was going to ask really well with that first question, which is kind of like why we're experiencing what we're experiencing right now from the state, from the gubernatorial mandated point of view. My next question would be, and this is directly related to the fact that our student parents, a majority of them are also equity students now. When we say equity, we mean women, mothers, African-American, Latinx, Chicanx, poor community, disenfranchised communities, first generation historically underrepresented students. So with that being said, there is a focus on our program and on our campus to make sure that they get the most equitable response, not just with academic accommodations, but also with the placement and rate that if they had to pay more, they would have to amass given their equity status. That being said, from your experiences, each one of you, this is basically a question as far as equity and inclusion is what do you believe, given the COVID-19 pandemic, what are the key requirements needed to qualify for subsidized sliding scale based childcare, given the impact of the pandemic and everything you already mentioned as far as how to vet, how to peek through those windows in the age of Zoom and telephones and screens? Because equity is still going to be an issue, and we've already seen that with student parents, pandemic or not. But since we're talking about the pandemic, given that reality, what has been your experience so far, or best advice for students?
Well, in terms of childcare subsidies, being able to access either free or low-cost care that's supported by generally government funding. It's always been the case that there's not enough, right? That hasn't changed with COVID. For a period of time, essential workers got a temporary subsidy, but that money was limited and is no longer available. But here's how the basics about subsidized care. People access it either through CalWorks, when someone is either currently getting cash aid or no longer than 2 years ago having received cash aid, they remain eligible for a child care subsidy from the state. And that's a done deal. That currently the state will pay for everybody who qualifies that way. And that's something that Bananas can work with people one-on-one to determine their eligibility. And that subsidy can be used to pay for a licensed slot in a family child care or a center-based program, or it can be used to pay for a license exempt individual like a relative, friend, or neighbor, if they so choose. Now with other people who are simply income eligible, there is some limited funding, and this is where there's never enough. And we have that funding as well, and we keep a waiting list. So when people contact us, we determine where they land in terms of the subsidy. And then if it's simply that they're low income, we will put them on that wait list. And we can advise them on other wait lists because we're not the only agency in town who has that kind of funding so that they can multiply their chances of getting a subsidy. That arena is not very hopeful in most circumstances because it is very limited and there are thousands of families who've been on these lists. But is worth checking out with us. The other type of subsidy is usually a child care center that has its own funding, such as the UC Berkeley system. Their centers have their own subsidy attached with them. There are state operated programs that are not UC specific, some in school districts or standalone nonprofit agencies. And there's always Head Start and Early Head Start, which are federally funded child care centers. Again, never enough slots. And we know that with COVID now, some of those programs are currently not operating, or if they are, they're operating at a much more limited level. But we certainly help parents at least know where they are, how to contact them, and it becomes part of the list to explore as one of your options.
Thank you, Judy. You brought up a lot of good points. One of the main things that stood out as you were speaking was the reality that some of our, if not a good portion of our student parents, may not be receiving any county assistance, and they might default into that other category of limited funds for full fee applicants. This is actually, I think, a perfect pivot point for you, Laurel. How does that show up on your in your realm of helping student parents with access to childcare? Is there anything related to county subsidies? And if not, then what is the plan of action when it comes to just the equitable standpoint for student parents in general?
Honestly, I don't think that we don't really have, I don't think we have anything on that level at Berkeley Parents Network. And I think that that is a shame. I think one of the things that we talked about was having some sort of grant for like developing some sort of grant or scholarship or something like that for either, I don't know, either for an organization like Bananas or something like that, that we could raise and from the funds that we get from the subscriptions. But we tried to do that over the recent holiday break, and it didn't really take off. But right now we don't really have anything going like that, unfortunately. So that's not something that BPN would do. I mean, we not that we've done. I think that's something that we would be interested in, and that's something that I'll bring up with the board, definitely. So thank you for that. No, because I do think that it's definitely something that we should definitely do, but we don't reach out enough to student parents actually, and I think that we really need to do that.
No worries. I'm confident that it'll change once we move forward.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here now.
Yeah. No, thank you. I mean, this is like this is actually really inspiring for me to make things happen. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're welcome. And again, student parent, and I don't want to speak for every student parent watching this, but I'm pretty sure they're thankful for you being here as well. Both of you. The next question I want to pose, and then I want to try my best to maybe shift our dynamic to students themselves, because we do have students in attendance, and that's when we will stop recording and just make that a private and confidential conversation. And this is a big one. It's kind of point number, the last point there on this slide as far as SPC questions. Just given everything that you shared, hypothetically, I'm a student parent. I come to you during the pandemic, and I might fit the description of everything that we've talked about. I am a student parent, currently at UC Berkeley, undergraduate or graduate. I'm on a fixed income, and my usual provider has gone away because of COVID, but I'm still in school. My children are still in school. We both are still in school at the same table at the same time. And academic accommodations are good, but like academic accommodations do, they only go so far. So I still want to try to implore childcare options. Just given that narrative, and I'm describing that narrative because that's not every last student parent at UC Berkeley, but a good majority of who we work with, that is the general narrative. What is your best piece of advice as far as a plan of action now, moving out of the pandemic? So if there's something that they should do right now, not like right now during the session, but after the session is over, later on tonight, I came to this session. What do you believe is the best plan of action, the best foot forward for them to do to help secure childcare, if not become waitlisted to secure childcare immediately after these restrictions lift, if maybe sooner?
It's a multifaceted thing, right? You try as many different ways of accessing childcare as you can discover. And that's what Bananas tries to do, is to help discover that and guide you towards that. So step one, give Bananas a call. I just put out the on chat the referral number that you can leave a message and we will respond, checking those messages daily. Two, you can also do that through our referrals@bananasbunch.org email, and we would respond to you that way. You can get referrals to start to look for childcare now, and guidance on how to look at those different referrals. You can, when it comes to finding low cost or paid for subsidies, we would either discover, yay, that you're part of the CalWorks system and be able to guide you that way, or put you on wait lists so that you are at least positioned to be able to potentially get a subsidy in the future. And then we would be able to kind of talk with you about what's your reality right now? What are your social connections right now? Do you have family in the area who can kind of help out for now? Do you have friends? Do you have friends who have children around the same age where you can pool your resources together and maybe rotate responsibility for caring for the kids, allowing each of you to, do your academic work? I don't know. It sounded like maybe UC Berkeley is working on developing some tools to help students find each other in order to do exactly that. Because I think, we're finding that a lot with, for instance, the new phenomenon of school age, parents of school agers who it's not even just about the money, it's about finding a situation where their kid could be academically involved while they're doing their work. And so we know that parents are finding each other and figuring out how to pool their resources. So that's kind of like survival 101 right now.
Thank you so much, Judy. Forgive me. I'm gonna decline that phone call and go back to, that was my wife.
Okay.
I'm going to decline that phone call and go right back to our slide.
We won't tell her.
Thank you so much, Judy. Laurel, you actually, again, I'm an active listener, but as Judy was concluding, you came to mind again because I said, oh boy, when we talk about parents networking, finding each other, given the pandemic, now and after, what are some of your best pieces of advice? Because that sounds like it's a little more prevalent in your area of support.
Yeah, so I would say, so the Berkeley Parents Network has archives, so many archives of different kinds of advice and different kinds of childcare. So I would suggest that you take a look, since you have this time right now, look and explore different kinds of childcare options that are available to you and see what kinds of things that you might be looking for in the future. So you can see, are you thinking maybe you're looking for a bigger center, or maybe you're looking for a family daycare, maybe you're looking for more one-on-one, and take a look and see what other parents are talking about their experiences. And that'll give you, well, maybe I thought I wanted this, but maybe actually this is something that I'm more interested in. Maybe, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe this is kind of the direction I want to look for. And then that'll give you kind of a little bit more information and kind of steer you towards what you think you might be looking for. And then you can kind of narrow down your search, and then you can start exploring those kind of places for future childcare options. And I do kind of want to kind of circle back to something that I was talking about, where I was saying that, you know, how there wasn't, maybe we didn't have options for like subsidizing things on Berkeley Parents Network. One of the things that we do offer, if not childcare options, we do have something called Marketplace, where people often have donations of items. So maybe you don't have enough, you know, you don't have like, I don't know, extra cash for all these fancy items that these parents in Berkeley have, but they have baby items that they may have used like once or twice that are like in pristine condition that they just want to get rid of out of their house. So you can go to this newsletter and then get this like fancy stroller for like super cheap, for example. So like that's something that I particularly love, that Berkeley Parents Network is really good for as well. And not just baby items, but other stuff as well. But anyway, circling back to the childcare stuff. So anyway, that's what the archives are really good for, and not just the childcare options, but also advice about things that come up during childcare situations. So what happens when I'm in a childcare situation and something happens? And there's been a lot of recent discussions about COVID situations that have arisen. What happens when such and such happens? Maybe a safety issue comes up. How do I deal with it? So this is really relevant now, obviously. So you might want to go and take a look at that and see, how would you deal with it? How did this parent deal with it? How does that make you feel about the situation? And that might kind of color how you feel about certain childcare situations. So.
Thank you. No, that was very informative for students to hear who may go down the Berkeley Parents Network route and just need more clarification. And side note, when we talk about free stuff, it wasn't through Berkeley Parents Network, but I got a free McLaren stroller that way.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Dang. And they are expensive. And I was an equity student. I'm not a student anymore. I'm still an equity person. Those things cost. So that's an added perk.
I got a lot of free stuff that way.
Man, yeah. All right. Well, Judy,
May I just say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have regularly they're called choosing childcare workshops.
Okay.
If people want to really go down deep into finding and assessing quality and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
The next one is happening on August 20th in the
wow.
evening from 6:30 to 8 p.m. in case anybody's interested. And
Excellent.
you can just register on our website and you'll receive a Zoom invite for that.
Excellent. Judy, is there any infographic or something we can promote on our end beforehand, or should we?
An
just
infographic? What's an infographic?
Don't you know what an infographic is? It's what we all say.
Are you talking about a flyer?
Just a flyer. Jesus Christ. You got me with that one. All my students probably laughing at me now. It says infographic. What do you mean?
Flyer? I don't think we have a flyer for that alone, but I'll send you some stuff afterwards if you want to. I'm assuming you're going to have people's emails that you can send stuff to.
Yes, listserv. And then the same thing for you, Laurel, Berkeley Parents Network, any and all activities coming up that we should know about moving forward. We'd love to have it.
Okay, I'll send you some stuff.
Thank you.
I'll see what we can pull up.
Yeah, well, I think between the both of you, we definitely, it's just the fall semester hasn't started yet, but the intention of this workshop and even session 1 was to make sure that we started the conversation now as opposed to later, last minute, midterms, financial.
Oh yeah.
That we could do it like that, but first of all, we wouldn't do it like that, and that's not our intention to do it like that. So I'm very, very grateful that you have both been able to join us today. All right. Now, this is not the end per se, but as the slide denotes, this is the end of the recorded version of our session, meaning for those of you watching asynchronously, meaning you weren't here 1:33 on Monday. This is the part where this will conclude. For those who are actually here synchronously, we're gonna stay for a little longer. We're not gonna force people to stay until 3 o'clock, but we do have the rest of this time. It's about 2:20 right now. We have until 3 o'clock to answer questions that you'd like to ask directly to either Lauren or Judy or both. Excuse me, Laurel, forgive me, or Judy or both. So I'm going to say thank you everyone who has joined us asynchronously, meaning you were not here in the moment, but you were still here. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and stop recording, and then we will move forward with the private Q&A session. In just this order, stop my share